Whenever we hear the word autism or autism support, where does your mind usually go? I feel like for the vast majority of people, the immediate image is it's a child.
Oh, absolutely. It's the cultural default. We're sort of conditioned to think of autism as a pediatric issue.
Yeah.
It's almost like in the public imagination, autism just stops at age 18.
But here's the reality check we're starting with today. And honestly, it's a pretty stark one. Autistic children grow up.
They do.
They become autistic adults. And suddenly, they're navigating a world designed exclusively for neurotypical brains, workplaces, relationships, grocery stores, complex public transit systems.
And all the support systems that were mandated by law when you're in school,
Right.
they often just poof, vanish. It's what researchers and advocates call the service cliff.
The service cliff.
Yeah, you hit age 18, maybe 21, depending on where you live, and you just fall off the map. You're left trying to manage executive function, sensory processing, complex social dynamics.
All on your own.
All on your own. It's a massive transition that, frankly, we just don't talk about enough.
So today we're doing something a little bit different. We aren't talking about policy or theory or, the really heavy medical stuff. We're unpacking a practical toolkit. We're looking at a curated list of mobile apps that act as, essentially digital prosthetics for independence.
And the source material for this deep dive, I think it's really crucial to mention right up top. We're working off a comprehensive guide from Hey ASD.
Okay, so why does that specific source matter? I mean, there are a million app lists out there.
Because Hey ASD is driven by autistic creators and advocates, and that changes the lens entirely.
How so?
These aren't clinical recommendations from a doctor who has read about autism in a textbook but never actually experienced sensory overload.
Right.
These are tools vetted by people with lived experience. They know what actually works because they use them to get through the day.
That is a massive distinction. So we aren't looking at what should work, we're looking at what does work. Okay, so we're going to cover three main pillars today based on their guide. First, we'll tackle the beast that is executive function, essentially how to hack time and routine. Second, communication and connection.
Finding your people and making yourself understood.
And finally, the internal landscape, sensory and emotional regulation.
Yeah, it's a full spectrum of support. From the really practical, how do I get out of bed, to the emotional, how do I understand why I'm so upset?
Before we get to the specific apps, I have to play devil's advocate for a second.
Go for it.
Apps. Really. I mean, we all use apps. We all have calendars on our phones.
Yeah.
What makes a standard app a game changer, specifically for an autistic adult?
Well, it comes down to how the neurodivergent brain processes information versus the neurotypical brain.
Okay.
Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. It affects communication, socialization, information processing. The physical world is often just unpredictable, it's loud, it's abstract, full of unwritten rules.
Right, and apps provide the exact opposite of that.
They provide a controlled environment.
Exactly.
They offer structure, predictability, and, crucially, visual cues. For someone who struggles with abstract concepts, a visual aid on a screen is concrete. But there's a second, more emotional factor that's arguably more important.
What's that?
Dignity.
Dignity. How so?
Well, think about the difference between your mother reminding you to brush your teeth at age 25 versus your phone buzzing to tell you. One feels like nagging. It highlights dependency.
It feels like you're being managed.
Exactly. The other, it's just a tool. It lets you self-regulate without needing a human shadow.
That makes perfect sense. It shifts the locus of control back to the individual. It turns care into independence.
Precisely.
Okay, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Pillar 1, executive function.
The art of adulting.
Which is hard for everyone, let's be honest. I struggle with it daily. But the source material highlights that for neurodivergent folks, this is often the biggest barrier. And specifically, they focus on time. Not just knowing what time it is, but the feeling of time passing.
Right. This is often called time blindness. And it's not that you can't read a clock. It's that you don't intuitively feel the difference between 5 minutes and 30 minutes.
So you sit down to do a task.
And suddenly 3 hours are gone, and you haven't eaten or moved.
So a standard digital clock saying 3.45, that doesn't help because it's just a number.
It's too abstract. It's just data without context. And this is why the source so strongly recommends visual timers. They highlight apps specifically called Visual Timer and Time Timer.
I've seen these used in classrooms, actually. But they work for adults, too.
Absolutely. The principle is universal. Instead of numbers, Time Timer displays time as a red disc or a colored bar that physically shrinks as time runs out.
Oh, I see.
It turns time into a physical object.
So you can actually see the 10 minutes disappearing. It's not a concept, it's a graphic.
Yes. If you're prone to hyperfocus, getting so lost in a task you forget the world exists, or if you have severe anxiety about transitions, seeing that red bar shrink helps your brain prepare.
Right.
It reduces the shock of time's up. It bridges the gap between the abstract concept of time and the reality of it.
That's a great hack. But what about the opposite problem? Not managing time while you're awake, but actually starting the day. That inertia of waking up.
Yes. Sleep inertia. That feeling of being glued to the mattress. This is where Alarmy comes in.
The source called this a great alarm clock, but honestly, reading the description, it sounds like a torture device.
It's aggressive, I'll give you that. But for many neurodivergent brains, the standard snooze button is just too easy. It requires zero brain power to hit it.
Right.
Alarmy forces you to engage your prefrontal cortex, the logical part of your brain, before the noise will stop.
Because you have to solve a puzzle or something.
Right. You might have to solve 3 math problems. Or, and this is my favorite feature, you can set it so you have to walk to the bathroom and take a picture of your sink to shut it off.
Oh, wow. So you physically cannot go back to sleep because your brain has been forced online and your body is in a different room.
Exactly. It effectively jump-starts the executive function engine. It just bypasses that I don't feel like it phase.
Speaking of jump-starting the engine, let's talk about motivation. I saw Habitica on the list. I've heard of this in the gaming world, but I never really connected it to autism support.
Habitica is brilliant because it understands dopamine. Many autistic adults, and also those with ADHD, struggle with how their brain processes reward, so it makes boring tasks like laundry, checking email, drinking water, physically painful to start because there's no immediate reward.
And Habitica turns laundry into a quest. Is that the idea?
It turns your life into a role-playing game, an RPG.
Yeah.
You create a custom character. When you complete real-life tasks, you gain experience points, you find gold, you level up your avatar.
You can buy digital armor.
You can. But if you ignore your daily tasks, your character takes damage and loses health.
So it externalizes the consequence.
And it provides that immediate ding of satisfaction.
Yeah.
It hacks the brain's reward system to get you through the mundane stuff that usually trips people up. It turns chores into gameplay.
The source also mentioned organization tools like Todoist and Trello, which, I mean, they're pretty standard corporate tools.
Right.
But there was one specific to sequencing that caught my eye. First, then visual schedule.
This is so crucial for preventing overwhelm. Sometimes just looking at a to-do list with 20 items, it causes a shutdown. You just freeze.
The wall of awful.
Exactly. You look at the wall and you can't climb it. First, then strips it down to the molecular level. First, I put on my socks. Then I put on my shoes.
You don't see the rest of the day.
You just see the immediate step. It supports sequencing, which is a really common struggle in executive dysfunction.
It seems like a lot of these apps are just about filtering out the noise to focus on the signal.
That's a great way to put it. And for those who need a bit more than just a list, maybe they need support with daily living skills like cooking or cleaning. The source highlights and flight.
This one seemed more comprehensive than the others.
It is. It's a platform designed for adults to manage their daily routine, but it has a built-in connection to a support network. So parents or caregivers can see the progress remotely.
So it's independence, but with a safety net.
Precisely. You're doing it yourself, but if you stop taking your meds or miss meals, your support network gets a little signal. It allows for intervention without the constant hovering that so many autistic adults find infantilizing.
Right.
It keeps the safety without killing the autonomy.
Okay, let's pivot to the second pillar, communication and connection. Now, we have to be careful here not to generalize, right? Because the spectrum and autism spectrum disorder is massive.
Right. We're talking about a range from nonverbal individuals to highly verbal people who might just struggle with sarcasm or, social cues. The toolkit covers both ends of that spectrum.
Okay, let's start with AAC augmentative and alternative communication. The heavyweight champion here seems to be Proloco to go.
This is often considered the gold standard. It's a symbol-based app. You have a huge library of icons and pictures. You tap them to construct sentences, and the device speaks them out loud.
And is this mostly for people who are nonverbal?
Primarily, yes, but it's also vital for people who experience what's called situational mutism.
Situational mutism. Okay, unpack that for us.
It's a phenomenon where someone might be fully verbal in a safe environment, like at home,
Sure.
but under the fluorescent lights and the high stress of a grocery store or workplace, their verbal processing it shuts down. They physically cannot get words out.
So this app gives them a voice when their biological voice fails.
Exactly. It prevents them from being trapped inside their own head. It's incredibly important.
And for those who can speak but perhaps struggle with the motor skills of writing or typing.
Dragon dictation is the recommendation there. It captures spoken thoughts and turns them into text. It just removes the friction of the physical interface, the keyboard, so the ideas can flow freely.
Now the social side. This is fascinating to me because social rules are so often unwritten, we pick them up. But if your brain doesn't pick them up naturally, how can an app teach you to read a room?
It's all about preparation. The source highlights apps like ChoiceWorks and Pictello, which are used to create social stories.
Okay, define a social story for us.
It's a script. It's a visual narrative that prepares you for a specific situation. So let's say you have a dentist appointment.
Right.
For an autistic person, the uncertainty of that event, the sounds, the smells, the order of operations, it can be terrifying. A social story breaks it down. We walk in, we check in, we sit in the chair, the dentist looks in my mouth, it takes 10 minutes, we leave.
It just removes the variable of the unknown.
It's mental rehearsal. And Pictello lets you build these stories with your own photos and your own voice so you can literally script your life before you live it. It turns the unknown into the known.
And for actually learning the cues like identifying facial expressions or tone of voice.
That's where something like autism therapy with MAT and SOCH come in. MAT uses cognitive exercises to strengthen those neural pathways, identifying emotions, patterns, logic. So AMA is more about managing specific social challenges through what are basically strategy guides.
But all this preparation, it leads to the big question, connection. It's one thing to navigate a doctor's visit. It's another to find a friend or a partner. And the source highlighted an app called Hiki.
Hiki is a major, major development. It's a friendship and dating app, but it's specifically for the autistic community.
So why is a segregated app necessary? Why not just use Tinder or Bumble like everyone else?
Think about the energy required to use a standard dating app. You're constantly masking. Yeah, masking is the act of hiding your autistic traits to fit in with neurotypical people. It's suppressing your natural urge to fidget. It's forcing eye contact, even if it's painful. Constantly analyzing your own tone of voice. It is exhausting.
It sounds like performing a character 24/7.
It's burnout-inducing. Hiki creates a space where neurodivergence is the baseline. You don't have to explain why you have a special interest in trains.
Right. Or why you might take a while to reply to a text.
Exactly. It just removes the need for masking.
That's powerful. It's not just about finding a date. It's about finding a place where you don't have to perform.
Exactly. It combats the profound isolation that so many autistic adults face.
So we've covered getting things done, and we've covered talking to people. Now let's talk about what's happening inside. Pillar 3, sensory and emotional regulation.
Yeah, this is the invisible struggle. The source talks a lot about sensory overload.
Paint a picture for us. What does that actually feel like?
Okay, imagine the hum of the refrigerator sounds like a chainsaw next to your ear. The tag on your shirt feels like sandpaper rubbing your skin raw.
Wow.
The lights in the office are strobing like a disco. Now, while all of that is happening, try to write a quarterly report.
It's just too much input. The filter's broken.
And when that input accumulates, it leads to a meltdown or a shutdown. But often to the person experiencing it, it feels random. Why am I exploding right now?
So how does technology solve what sounds like a physiological problem?
It starts with data. The source recommends Autism Tracker Pro.
This is like a quantifying self-approach.
Yes.
Yeah.
You track everything. Mood, behavior, food, sleep, weather, environment. The goal is pattern recognition.
So you stop seeing the meltdown as a random failure and start seeing it as a logical consequence.
You realize, oh, I always crash on Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Then you look at the data. Tuesdays at 3 p.m. is the staff meeting in the room with the bad acoustics and the flickering light.
That changes everything. It turns a chaotic emotional experience into a solvable data problem.
It validates the experience. It's not, I'm broken. It's, I'm overstimulated.
And once you identify the trigger, or you're in the middle of the anxiety, what then? The source listed relaxed melodies, and headspace.
Yeah, so Relaxed Melodies handles the auditory environment. You get customizable white noise to block out the chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And Headspace is interesting because while it's a general meditation app, the source notes it's particularly effective for the sleep issues and anxiety that so frequently co-occur with autism.
There were also Mood-Fit and Happify on there.
Those are basically cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, in your pocket. They help you build resilience and coping strategies for when the regulation slips.
We've been talking strictly about software, but the source material took a really important detour here. They emphasize that these apps work best when they're paired with hardware, with physical tools.
This is the holistic view. You can't app your way out of a scratchy sweater, right?
Right.
The HASD team talks about the importance of sensory-friendly clothing,
Tagless t-shirts, seamless socks.
weighted blankets, noise-canceling headphones.
I loved the phrasing they used. Comfort is a need, not a reward.
That is such a profound shift in thinking. For a neurotypical person, a soft shirt is a nice to have. It's a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
For an autistic person, regulating that sensory input is a prerequisite for functioning. If your skin feels like it's burning, you can't access the part of your brain that handles logic or communication.
So the noise-canceling headphones make the Todoist list possible.
They are the foundation. Without sensory regulation, executive function is it's impossible.
Before we wrap up, I want to zoom out for a second. There were a few apps that didn't fit neatly into our pillars, but seemed essential for independence. Navigation was a big one. City Mapper.
Oh, yeah. If you live in an urban environment, public transit is a nightmare of uncertainty. Where is the bus? Did I miss it? Is it late? What if the stop is closed?
That anxiety can be paralyzing.
It really can. City Mapper provides real-time data. It tells you which exit to take, exactly when the bus is coming, and it alerts you when to get off.
It removes the cognitive load.
It removes the cognitive load of navigation so you can focus on just existing in public.
And there was a mention of forest.
Yes. You plant a virtual tree, and it grows as long as you don't touch your phone. If you leave the app, the tree dies.
Visualizing focus again.
Exactly. It's hugely popular in the ADHD community, too. And that's a key point. Many of these apps, like Forest or Habitica, are crossover hits. They work for anyone with executive function challenges, not just autistic adults.
A practical question for our listeners. What about access? Are we talking about expensive medical software here?
It's a mix. Apps like CityMapper or Habitica, they have free versions. However, the specialized AAC apps like Proliquo2Go can be significant investments, costing hundreds of dollars because they are essentially medical communication devices.
But the takeaway is that they don't replace professional therapy.
No, absolutely not. They're supplements. They bridge the gap between the 1 hour a week you spend with a therapist and the other 167 hours you spend living your life.
So if we look at this whole stack of apps, from Time Timer, Visualizing the Invisible, to Hiki Finding Community, to Autism Tracker Pro, Decoding Emotions, what's the big picture here?
I think we're looking at a shift from fixing the person to equipping the person.
Okay, break that down for me.
Well, historically, autism intervention was often about behavior modification, about making the autistic person act more normal.
Mm-hmm.
These tools aren't doing that. They are acknowledging the difference. They are saying, okay, your brain processes time differently, so here's a tool to translate time into your language.
It's accepting the operating system and providing compatible software.
Exactly. It bridges the gap between intent and execution. The autistic adult has the intent to work, to connect, to be independent. The environment puts up barriers. These digital prosthetics help smash those barriers down.
So it empowers them to exist comfortably in their own skin.
Comfortably and autonomously. That's the goal.
That loops back to an idea I've heard discussed in disability circles called the spoon theory. Do these apps essentially give people more spoons?
That is the perfect analogy. Yeah. For those who don't know, spoon theory is the idea that you only have a limited amount of energy represented by spoons in a day. Every single task costs a spoon.
Okay.
For a neurotypical person, showering costs maybe half a spoon. For someone with sensory processing issues, that same shower might cost 3 spoons.
And once you're out of spoons, you're done.
You are done. You crash. So if technology can save spoons, if I don't have to spend 50% of my energy trying to figure out if 5 minutes have passed or decoding a cashier's facial expression,
Right.
I have those spoons left over to actually live, to have a hobby, to love my family, to be myself.
So it's not about productivity in the capitalist sense. It's about energy conservation for well-being.
Precisely.
Well, this has been a fascinating look into a digital toolkit that, frankly, many of us could probably borrow from to improve our own focus and mental health.
Absolutely. Universal design helps everyone.
To our listeners, take a moment to look at your own phone. Think about the tools you rely on. Now imagine if the world wasn't built for your operating system. Which of these apps would be your lifeline? It's something to mull over.
It certainly is.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you on the next one.
Goodbye, everyone.